Let us help you reach your peak in retirement. It's time for Retirement Elevated with Sean Lee.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to another edition of the Retirement Elevated podcast with Sean Lee. Sean, what's up, buddy? How are you this week?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well. A little wore out, but it's been a good week.
Well, that's good. We were talking just before we kicked this podcast off. Little baseball tryouts for the little ones, yeah?
Yeah, we did their first tryout. It's time to move on to a little bit more competitive league, and
Gotcha.
it's great seeing how nervous even my boy was
Right.
about making the team. Yeah,
I love that story you just told me that you were like, hey, man, I'm coaching the team whether you make it or not. And his little look on his little face was pretty priceless.
Oh, man, he was nervous, and he's pretty confident in himself, but he looked and he's like, oh, so I might not make the team? I'm like, nah, you got to work just like everybody else.
Right. That's awesome. So I know you said he's a good player, so I'm sure he'll be fine. But I think that's a great way to do it, though, right? Just so he just kind of knows, hey, Dad's going to work me just like everybody else. And I'm sure he knows that anyway. So,
well, we had the conversation last night afterwards. I'm like, hey, buddy, do you think I'm hard on you?
uh-huh.
Well, Dad, you yell sometimes. Well, part of it is because you didn't hear me.
Right.
But I don't yell at you more than anybody else. No, you don't. You're good.
Okay.
And so it's funny listening to kind of how he views it as well.
Oh, yeah. No,
I don't think he would
stuff.
change it, but it's,
Yeah. That's all part of the fun parts of raising the kids and doing all those activities. So looking forward to hearing more about that as the year progresses. But let's dive into our show this week. I got a fun topic for us. I know you travel quite a bit for work as well as for personal and stuff. And actually, I think in a lot of ways, the flying metaphor with retirement is almost really perfect because we can learn a lot from just what flying teaches us, things we go through with flying, the things we think about in retirement. So I've got a little fun thing here. Come along with me on this. I think you'll enjoy this. So, Sean, much like, we're always saying, you need a retirement plan, right? We're always saying you got to have a good plan to help you roadmap, lay out, how to get to and through retirement, all the different things. Well, it's the same as a flight plan. It's not like if you go... Most everybody who's going to listen to us has been on the plane at least once in their life. I know some people are afraid of flying, but for the most part, most people have gotten on a plane. And we're all smart enough to realize, to know that the pilot just doesn't jump in, to the flight deck there, take off, and then figure it out once he gets up there, right? They get a flight plan.
Exactly.
And that's like a retirement.
Oh, for sure. I mean, if you think about it, let's say that you're getting on a flight and you're going from LA to London. I mean, that's a pretty decent stretch of ground that you're going to travel.
Exactly.
The pilot doesn't just jump in the plane. Is like, all right, well, let's go ahead and
how do we want to get
this thing up? Yeah, which route should we take? I mean, they're looking at the weather. Are they going to fly this direction or this direction over the U.S.? Which way are they going to go over the Atlantic Ocean?
North Pole if you're going to London, which blew my mind to learn that.
Right. Depending on weather conditions, they have that plan for a reason. That plan is to get them from destination to destination safely. And, if there's an issue that comes up or if they haven't made a decision. But here's the thing. That's not a decision that's being made after takeout. They've studied. They've done all that before they even take off.
Right.
Retirement's really no different. I mean, you want to start to plan retirement sooner than a lot of people think. And I hear people say all the time, oh, well, I'll plan that a year or 2 years before I retire. I mean, that's great if you're going to build the plan. But the reality is you're saving. And that last decade is extremely important in making decisions that could affect you positively or negatively. And if I get on a plane and the pilot says, hey, welcome you guys to... Delta or American or whatever, we've got a 85% chance that we're going to land this plane. I'm not going to stay on that plane. I want to have a pretty high probability. And so I think not building a plan and not making decisions on how your retirement's going to go forward and how you want things structured earlier is sort of like, hey, we're going to wing it. Let's hope that we make it without really knowing.
Right. Yeah, and some people, unfortunately, do kind of take that stance. They will say, well, we'll just figure out retirement when we get there. And I think a lot of times that can come from a number of ways. We talked about that here before on the program, that it can be from, just a fear of having to handle and deal with it. Maybe just not knowing where to turn, where to start, all those kinds of things. So a lot of that I get. So again, I want to use this flying analogy to kind of hopefully give us a useful nugget to see a way through some of this. And so we'll get back to the flying part. So you take off, you're up in the air, you're rolling. Now, I don't know about you, Sean, but I'm 48 now. I used to fly all the time. And when I was was younger, turbulence didn't bother me. It really didn't. And the last time I took a trip was just a couple of years ago. I think I was maybe 45 or so, and I flew from Carolina to California. And man, when it started to get rocky, like it started to really wig me out more than it has ever done. And I found myself thinking about it. And the reason I got onto this topic is because my wife travels a lot for work. And she's, a matter of fact, she's always taking these long flights to London or China, Shanghai. She's in the air for, 17 hours, which would freak me out. And it got me to thinking, like, as we age, turbulence, just like volatility, does begin to bother us more and more.
You said something interesting. It's, when I was younger, it didn't bother me.
Right.
And right now, my kids get a little nervous with turbulence. It jolts them up and down.
Right.
I'm the guy who sleeps through it for the most part.
Okay. Right.
But my wife isn't. And so it affects everybody differently.
Sure. Yeah.
But the thing about turbulence, you don't know when it's going to come. It hits you and
bam, out of the blue. Yep.
And it's the same thing with retirement. I mean, we have indicators that market volatility is going to come, but we don't really know when it's going to hit. And if you're paying any attention, you know that it's happening, but you don't know when it's going to come specifically. And all the pundits and all the talking heads, they may say that they know it's going to come. Nobody really knows.
Right.
Like turbulence, some people are bothered by the market fluctuations and some aren't. But when we start to talk about the volatility, we have to remember two things. One, we need to understand how we feel about that specifically. How's that going to hit us? Are we going to be uncomfortable?
Yeah. And be honest about it with yourself, right? And your advisor, right? Because sometimes people will say, I can handle volatility when they really can't.
The market's up 20% roughly right now.
Right.
I'm good with that. I like the volatility, but they'll want that until it's down.
Right.
And then they don't like it. The second part of that is, how does the volatility fit into your plan? So how's your plan going to be built, and how are you going to drive income to hopefully provide a little bit of, I don't want to say the word protection, but well thought out withdrawal strategy so the volatility doesn't affect you as much.
Right. Well, yeah, and I think that's a great point because, again, turbulence is going to happen. Just like in air travel, turbulence in the market's going to happen. Turbulence in your investments are going to happen. And I think a lot of that comes down to you really do have to, again, be honest with yourself. If you're married, you and your spouse have to be honest with each other, have those conversations, and share that information with your advisor. Because, again, a lot of times we talk about communication with our advisor. If you are not happy with the kind of what you're seeing with your plan, I would start there first. It may not just necessarily be that someone's doing a bad job or a poor job. It may be that the communication's off. You may be thinking, I want to, be much safer than I actually am, and that's not really the way you communicated it, or vice versa. So again, it's really important to, understand your feelings and then be able to share those and with people when it comes to how volatility affects you. And I was thinking about this the other day, Sean, with this current run of the market, not the whole 10 years, but just like the last 24 to 36 months of the market. I liken it to Rocky Balboa. It seems like every time we think this market is down for the count, it's like a Rocky movie. He gets back up.
Right.
I mean, it takes a beating. We had the December of 18 there, the big turn down, bounces back up in January of 19. May it goes down, bounce record highs in June, July. August it goes down, bounces back up in September. I mean, really, it's like a prize fight.
I get questions all the time. Hey, what's the market going to do?
Right.
I don't know. I'm going to wake up tomorrow and it's going to be up, it's going to be down. And when you start to look at the longevity of the markets, the last 100 years, it's been up. But the key there when it comes to planning is, do you want to be knocked down? Do you want to be Rocky that gets knocked down your first 2 years of retirement? Or do you want to be Rocky who gets up the first 2 years? The one thing that we don't have any control over, I don't have any control over when you're going to take that punch. And so you've got a plan, you've got to put some defenses in place to make sure that your income is structured properly so you can hopefully sleep at night and your plan does stay intact.
I just thought it hit me the other day and I was thinking about it. I think I had just watched a Rocky movie and I think that's what made me think about it. But anyway, we'll finish off our flying and retirement here segment with this, and that's air traffic control. And that's really kind of what you are, if you want to use this analogy, Sean, is you're like air traffic control as the advisor, as the managing partner at Elevated Retirement Group. You and your team, your job is to look out for the things that the pilot, aka the client, can't see. The best pilots in the world, still need help, right? So they don't just get up. Once they get up there, they still are constantly in contact with, air traffic control, helping them get safely to where they're going. And I thought that was just a perfect analogy for what you guys do. You guys are looking out for the things that are hopefully on the horizon. You're not going to see them all, just like air traffic control can't see them all, but you do have more experience in looking out and making sure that flight plan hopefully goes off without a hitch.
That's exactly it. And it doesn't matter how long you've been saving, how long you've been investing for retirement. There are just things that you can't see from where you're sitting. Now, the reason that's for a lot of people, that's not their job. They don't build plans all day long. They don't have the experience or to have gone through various scenarios and how to solve those problems. That's what an advisor is there for. An advisor should be there to provide guidance on all those different scenarios and all those different issues or potential issues that could arise that really the client or the pilot doesn't see. That's if you've never planned for retirement before, you can't be expected to know all that stuff. So when you start to think about, hey, do I need somebody to get me from point A to point B? Start thinking about it like a pilot. Hey, pilot doesn't just jump in the plane and say, let's roll. Gets up in the air and just takes their own route. They can't do that because there are certain things that as a pilot, you can't see that air traffic control or your advisor can. And it's just based on experience.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, and I think it's an easy one to make, and so that hopefully you picked up something useful from that. We've all done air travel, so for most part anyway, and so it's really easy to kind of liken that to how we feel about retirement planning process, and really a lot of it's around the market volatility. So simply, if you've got questions, if you've got some concerns, if you need a little bit of help, if you're unsure about some things, or you just want to kind of get your flight plan, a second opinion on that, or maybe you don't have a flight plan at all, if you will, then reach out to Sean and the team at Elevated Retirement Group. Call them at 855-50-RETIRE. That's 855-50-RETIRE. Or as always, go to the website retirementelevatedpodcast.com. That's retirementelevatedpodcast.com. Subscribe to it. Click on the links there to listen to it on whatever platform you choose. Give us a subscribe as well so you get past episodes, future episodes, and all that good stuff. But before you take any action, if you ever need any help, again, reach out to Sean and the team at 855-50-RETIRE. And with that, I'll say goodbye for this week. Sean, thanks for your time, bud. I hope you have a great week.
Hey, thanks, man. We'll talk to you soon.
We'll see you soon here on Retirement Elevated with Sean Lee.
Investment advisory services offered through Elevated Capital Advisors, LLC, and SEC registered